It's just a loan. You'll get it back, my dad told me with a reassuring nod. But when I eventually asked for it back, he laughed in my face. That's when I realized I had to take matters into my own hands. And just 2 days later, he regretted ever brushing me off. I still remember the exact moment I handed that money over to him. $10,000, more than I'd ever given to anyone in my life, no matter how close. I was nervous, couldn't lie about that. But he just gave me a pat on the back, smiled wide, and said, "It's just a loan. You'll get it back real soon. You know I'm good for it." And I believed him, no questions asked. Because, really, why wouldn't I? He was my dad. The man who'd raised me. The guy who always had something smart to say, always seemed to have a plan. He'd never needed my help before, not like this. So if he was asking for money, I figured it must be serious. I didn't even hesitate, I wired the 10 grand straight into his account. That was 4 months ago. And now, every time I try to talk about it, he just laughs like it's some kind of joke. At first, he just dodged the question, tried to steer the conversation in another direction. But after a few weeks, his attitude shifted. The last time I brought it up, he smirked and said, "What? You still thinking about that? Let it go." I was stunned. Didn't even know how to respond. Let it go? We're talking about $10,000, not some pocket change I found under the couch. That was my savings. That money represented months of hard work, careful budgeting, and passing on dinners out with friends just to build a safety net for myself. And now he was acting like it was nothing, like I was the fool for even asking. That's when it hit me. He never planned to pay me back. Not ever. The anger didn't explode all at once, it crept in slow, like a leak in the ceiling that turns into a flood. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the way he looked at me, like I was some naive little kid who didn't understand how the real world worked. But I understood plenty. And if he thought he could pull one over on me without any consequences, well, he was about to find out just how wrong he was. Because I wasn't about to let this slide. I was going to make damn sure he regretted ever taking advantage of me. And believe me, 2 days later, he did. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the betrayal pressing down on me like a weight in my gut. It wasn't just the 10 grand. If this had been anyone else, I might have chalked it up to a bad decision. But this was my dad. And the worst part? He wasn't even trying to pretend anymore. He wanted me to feel stupid. He wanted me to feel small and powerless. That's what stung the most. I replayed every conversation in my head every single time I brought it up, and he brushed me off like I was some teenager begging for gas money. My hands curled into fists. Fine. If that's how he wanted to act, then I'd stop treating him like a father and start treating him like any other low-level scam artist. I just needed to figure out the best way to hit him where it really hurt. And then it hit me. It wasn't about the money to him. Wasn't even about ego. It was about image. My dad always cared a little too much about appearances. He thrived on being that guy Mr. Put Together, the one his buddies looked up to, the guy who could hold court at any get-together and come off like he had all the answers. He didn't just want people's respect, he depended on it. And that was exactly what I was going to take away from him. I grabbed my phone and started jotting down notes. Step 1, figure out just how deep this financial hole really was. I had a hunch that this loan wasn't some isolated moment of desperation. He'd been living way too comfortably for someone always complaining about being strapped for cash. If he owed me, odds were he owed others too. And if that turned out to be true, well, a little strategic pressure might just turn his cozy world upside down. I was just getting warmed up. The next morning, I got to work. I wasn't sure what I'd find, but I knew my dad well enough to suspect there was more to this than he let on. He'd always had that smooth talker charm, that trust me tone that made people lower their guard. And yeah, it worked until you started digging beneath the surface. I figured I'd start with the regulars, his poker buddies, the guys he had beers with every Sunday afternoon. The kind of men who pretended money was no issue, but still squabbled over who'd picked up the last check. I reached out to one of them, Mr. Reynolds, our old neighbor who'd known my dad since I was a kid. I didn't even have to pry. "Oh, your dad," he said with a dry laugh. "If this is about money, you might want to take a number." I gripped my phone a little tighter. "What do you mean?" "He borrowed 2 grand from me last year," Mr. Reynolds replied. "Told me he'd have it back to me in a month." It's been 12. And every time I bring it up, he acts like I'm the one being unreasonable. My stomach turned. So it wasn't just me. Has he borrowed from anyone else? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. PFT. Everyone. Steve from the bowling league, Uncle Dave, even the guy who runs the liquor store a few blocks down. That slow, bitter burn started to creep up my spine. My dad had a whole system in place. This wasn't some one-off thing, it was a pattern. He'd been borrowing money for years, playing it off like it was nothing, then guilt-tripping folks for daring to ask for it back. I thanked Mr. Reynolds and hung up the phone. This was deeper than I thought. But now I had a plan, and it was clear as day. I was going to trap him in a spot where smooth talk wouldn't save him. Where he couldn't laugh or dodge or deflect. By the time I was through, he'd wish he never tried to pull one over on me. I wasn't going to confront him in private. That'd just give him the upper hand. He'd twist my words, spin the story, and somehow make me feel like I was the one out of line. No, this had to be public. Unavoidable. I spent the rest of the day contacting every single person I could think of. Mr. Reynolds was right, my dad had tapped just about everybody. Some lent him a couple $100, others a few grand. The worst was Uncle Dave, $15,000 down the drain for some shady business opportunity that never even existed. And the stories? All the same. They'd try to get their money back, and he'd either ghost them, feed them some excuse, or worse, laugh in their face like they were idiots for asking. Same thing he did to me. Honestly, it was almost impressive. He'd built his own little financial empire out of lies and favors. But that empire was about to fall. I started a group chat. I kept it short and to the point. Me, hey everyone. I think it's time we had a talk about Dad's loans. Meet at Mom and Dad's place. Saturday. 6 p.m. Replies poured in fast. Uncle Dave, about damn time. Steve, count me in. Mr. Reynolds, oh, this is gonna be good. By the time things went quiet, I had 10 people locked in. 10 people ready to walk through that door and demand answers. Best part? He'd never see it coming. Saturday. 5:55 p.m. I pulled into my parents' driveway, heart pounding like a drum. But I wasn't nervous. I was fired up. I could already hear my dad's voice booming from inside, holding court like always, loud and full of himself. Perfect. I knocked. My mom answered with a smile. Oh. I didn't know you were stopping by. I smiled right back. Yeah, figured it was time for a little family conversation. Right on cue, a car pulled up behind me. Then another. And another. One by one, my dad's unpaid debts walked through the door. His face lost all color the second he realized who was coming in. What's going on?" he stammered. I walked right in, took a seat in the living room, and locked eyes with him. "We're here to talk about the money you owe, Dad," I said. "And we're not leaving until we figure out how you're paying it back." He just sat there, stunned. Smug little grin frozen on his face. You could practically hear the gears grinding as he tried to figure out a way to wriggle out of it. Then, he laughed. That fake kind of laugh he used when he wanted to humiliate someone. "Oh come on," he said, shaking his head. "Is this an intervention or something? You all serious right now?" No one laughed back. Uncle Dave crossed his arms. "Yeah, Tom. We're dead serious. You owe me 15 grand. When were you planning to pay that back?" Steve jumped in. "You told me it was just a tight month. That was 2 years ago." Mr. Reynolds let out a dry chuckle. "You all got excuses. I didn't even get that." He just flat out ignored me. Dad's grin faded fast. Okay, everyone relax. I was going to pay you back." "Oh really?" I cut in, leaning forward. "Because when I asked, you laughed in my face. Told me to let it go." Silence. He was trapped, and he knew it. Mom, who'd been sitting off to the side the whole time, finally spoke. "Tom," she said, her voice tight. "Is that true?" He held up his hands, trying to play innocent. "I mean, yeah, I borrowed some money. But what's the big deal? We're family. We help each other. That's how it works." I let out a bitter breath. No, Dad. That's how it works when you actually pay people back. You didn't borrow. You took. And now it's time to make it right. He scanned the room, hoping someone would back him up. But all he got were arms crossed and eyes waiting. I decided to press the issue. So, I said, pulling out my phone. You want to start working on a payment plan? Or should I just let everyone else in town know that good old Tom, the guy who's always good for it, owes half the neighborhood? His face turned beet red. For the first time in his life, he was the one on the receiving end of the shame. And he hated it. The silence dragged out. His jaw clenched. His fingers gripped the armrests like he was bracing for a punch. His eyes flicked around the room, from one angry face to the next. Finally, he muttered. All right. Fine. I'll figure something out. I leaned back, shaking my head. No, Dad. You don't get to figure it out on your own this time. We're figuring it out right now. I flipped my phone around and tapped the screen. I already did the math, I said. Between everyone here, you owe just under $40,000. He recoiled like I'd slapped him. Mom gasped. Tom, is that true? Of course not, he snapped. He's exaggerating. It's not like I've got that kind of money just sitting around. I looked him dead in the eye. Then it's time to start selling off some of that pride, Dad. Because we're not leaving without a plan. That's not our issue anymore, Uncle Dave cut in sharply. You took our money, plain and simple. You said you'd pay it back, he added, his tone firm. So either you cough it up, or we take the next step. Dad let out a scoff, like the idea was too ridiculous to even entertain. Next step? What, you're gonna sue me now? Steve folded his arms across his chest, his jaw tight. If that's what it comes down to, yeah. And that look on my dad's face right then? That's when reality finally smacked him in the face. Up until now, he'd always managed to wiggle out of situations like this. He'd chuckle, wave it off like it was some misunderstanding, and folks would eventually drop it. But not this time. This time, there were 10 of us packed into his living room, treating the moment like a serious intervention, because it was. He couldn't fast talk his way out of this one. He couldn't make me feel like the fool and move right along. This time, his ego was on the chopping block. His image, everything he cared about, was suddenly in jeopardy. And that's what finally cracked him. I saw it. The way his throat tightened, how his fingers nervously tapped against his knee. Fine, he mumbled, almost choking on the word. Fine. I'll pay everyone back. Just give me some time. How much time are we talking? I asked, eyeing him carefully. Couple of months, he blurted out too fast. I just need to shift a few things around. I'll handle it. I swear. I gave a slow nod. All right. You've got 2 months. Then I looked around the room, catching everyone's eye before turning back to him. But here's the deal, if you haven't paid back at least half by the end of the first month, we go public. His eyes snapped open wide. Go public? Oh yeah, I said with a grin. We'll make sure folks know exactly who you are. The bowling league, your poker buddies, the neighbors, hell, even your business contacts. I'll post it online, name by name, dollar by dollar. I shrugged casually. And knowing how much your reputation matters to you? You probably don't want that kind of heat. His expression was a train wreck, flushed with embarrassment, brimming with frustration, and soaked in fear. But in the end, it was the fear that won out. Fine, he said through clenched teeth. You win. I smiled. Great. We'll check back in 1 month to the day. And with that, I stood up. One by one, the others got to their feet and followed my lead. We left him sitting there, looking small for once, humiliated, powerless, boxed in, just like he'd made us feel all those years. And the best part? He couldn't joke his way out of it this time. As we stepped outside my parents' house, I felt this huge weight finally lift off my chest. It was over. The game he always played was done. This time, he didn't have an escape plan or clever excuse. He was the one scrambling now. Uncle Dave clapped me on the back as we walked to our cars. Kid, I gotta admit, that felt damn good. Mr. Reynolds let out a chuckle. Yeah, Tom's got a big mouth, but I guess it came in handy today. I gave a grin but kept quiet. I wasn't celebrating yet. Not until he actually came through and paid what he owed. And something told me he was already cooking up a plan. Didn't take long for me to be proven right. About a week later, I was home, sipping my morning coffee when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mom. "Can we talk?" I sighed. Of course. I typed back, "If this is about Dad, there's nothing to talk about." Not even a minute later, my phone started ringing. I groaned and picked it up. "Mom." "Tom, listen," she jumped in before I could say anything, her voice already laced with that guilt-trip tone she always used. "Your father's under a lot of stress. He can't sleep, he's barely eating." "Oh no," I said flatly, without a trace of sympathy. She let out an exasperated sigh. "You don't have to be so heartless. He's your father. And you're treating him like he's some kind of criminal." I couldn't help but laugh. "Mom, he is a criminal. He took money from 10 people and never paid a dime back. That's literally what a criminal does." Silence on the other end. Then she tried switching tactics. "He's doing the best he can, Tom. He's been trying to find the money. You just rushed him." "He had 4 months," I snapped. "And how much has he paid back?" "Zero." She sighed again, but this time her voice softened. "He just needs a little help." There it was. The real reason she called. I leaned back in my chair, rubbing my temples. "Mom, did he put you up to this? Are you calling to ask me for more money?" She hesitated way too long. And that was all I needed. I burst out laughing. "Oh my God. He actually has the guts to ask me for more money? Now." "He just needs a small loan," she said quickly. "Just enough to." I cut her off right there. "Mom. If you bring that up again, I'm going to post a list of every single person he owes money to in the family group chat." Dead silence. Then she muttered bitterly, "You're just like your uncle." That actually made me smile. Good. Because Uncle Dave actually gets his money back. I hung up. I knew my dad too well. If he was desperate enough to send Mom in to play the emotional card, that only meant one thing: he was out of moves. And honestly, I was enjoying watching him sweat. The next few days passed in a strange kind of quiet. Too quiet. I knew he wasn't just sitting around twiddling his thumbs. He was definitely scheming. He always did when cornered. Apologizing wasn't his thing. Plotting was. Sure enough, 3 days later, my phone buzzed again. A text from Uncle Dave. "Uncle Dave, we've got a problem. Call me." I didn't waste a second, I called him right away. "What happened?" I asked as soon as Uncle Dave picked up. He let out a tired sigh. "Your dad's trying to flip the script," he said. "He's going around telling people we're harassing him over money he doesn't even owe." I gripped the phone tighter. "You've gotta be kidding me." "Wish I was," he muttered. "He told the guys at the bowling alley that you and I are basically shaking him down. Said the whole thing's just a big misunderstanding." I let out a dry laugh. "Yeah? And they bought that?" "Nah," Uncle Dave said. "They didn't believe him. But he's out there trying, Tom. He's trying to make you look like the villain." I wasn't shocked, not one bit. This was classic Dad. Stir up enough confusion, plant a few doubts, and maybe people start backing off. It had worked for him before. But not this time. Not with me. I gave him a deadline, and if he thought he could wiggle out of it with some pity campaign, he was dead wrong. I spent the next few hours gathering everything: texts, bank transfers, voicemails, any piece of evidence that proved he had taken money from us and never paid a cent back. Then I sat down and wrote a message. Not something angry or emotional. Just a clear breakdown: names, dates, amounts, screenshots. The truth. I had it ready to go in case he tried to play dirty. Just as I was reviewing it, my phone buzzed. "Dad, we need to talk. Come over." I stared at the message. I knew what this was. It wasn't an apology. It was damage control. He wanted to talk me down before I went nuclear. But I smiled to myself anyway. Whether he realized it or not, I already had the upper hand. I didn't text back. Not right away. I let him stew for a bit, wonder if I was even going to show. But the truth was, I already knew I'd go. Not because I wanted to hear whatever garbage excuse he had lined up. No, I was going for one reason: I wanted to see him squirm. The next afternoon, I pulled into the driveway. I could see him pacing through the front window, clearly anxious. Good. I knocked once and let myself in. Mom was on the couch with her hands clasped together, like she was praying this whole mess would fix itself. Dad was by the fireplace, arms crossed like he was trying to act cool and in control. It wasn't working. You took your time, he said. I shrugged. Had better things to do. He frowned. Sit down. No thanks, I said, leaning against the wall. Let's just get to it. He sighed and rubbed his temples like he was the victim here. All right, look. Maybe I got a little careless with money. Maybe I let things go on longer than I should have. But this whole debt collector act? It's ridiculous. I laughed. Oh, so now it's a joke? Tom, you don't get it, he said, his voice tightening. I never meant to screw anyone over. Things just got away from me. I stared at him. 4 months? That's your excuse? He slumped into his chair. I just need a little more time. That's all. I pulled out my phone. How much more? He shifted in his seat. Couple more months. I raised an eyebrow. That's what you said last time. And the time before that. He snapped. Damn it, Tom. You want to see me fail? You think I've got stacks of cash just lying around? I shook my head. No. But I think you've got enough to start paying something. Instead, you're running around town trying to paint me as the bad guy. You really think that's gonna work? He looked annoyed, but also cornered. That's not what I meant. Doesn't matter, I said. Because now you've got 2 choices. I opened the draft I'd written, the message with everything spelled out. I turned the screen toward him. Option 1, I said. You start paying everyone back. Doesn't have to be all at once. Just enough to show you're serious, and we'll back off. He stared at the phone like it might explode. Option 2? I continued. I send this out. To your friends. The bowling league. Your poker buddies. Hell, the whole neighborhood if I have to. And once your reputation's gone, good luck ever borrowing a dime again. He went pale. Looked to Mom like he expected her to swoop in and save him. But she didn't say a word. Tom, he said quietly, his voice low and shaky now. You wouldn't do that. I smiled. Try me. For the first time in my life, I watched my dad shut his mouth. No smart remarks. No smug grin. Just silence. He looked defeated. Hand clenched in a fist. Face full of shame. Then, finally, he exhaled. Fine, he muttered. I'll start paying. I leaned in slightly. First payment by Friday. Or that message goes out. He didn't argue. Didn't fight it. Because deep down, he knew he'd lost. Friday rolled around, and sure enough, for the first time in his life, he actually followed through. It wasn't much, just a small payment. Barely a scratch on what he owed. But it was something. Proof that I wasn't bluffing. Proof that he wasn't in control anymore. Over the next few weeks, he kept paying. Slowly. Grudgingly. But the payments came. Because I'd made it crystal clear if he didn't, I'd torch what little reputation he had left. And the best part? He never cracked a smile about it. No jokes. No brushing it off. Just quiet. He finally understood I wasn't the fool in this story. He was. And he'd never make that mistake again.